There are moments that split your life into before and after. Moments when silence becomes louder than words. When a smile masks 1,000 unanswered questions. And the world keeps moving, even though yours has stopped. Grief. It comes without warning, rewriting everything you thought you knew about strength, love, and healing. But what if we stopped running from it? What if we listened, really listened to the stories, the ache, the wisdom? Welcome to Open Hearts, a space for raw truth, quiet strength, and the kind of conversations that remind us we are not alone. This is where healing begins. This is where hearts speak.
So, from the start of this year, after the normal and crossover ritual where everyone will make all of the resolutions about what they wanted for the year and how they wanted the year to turn out, right after that, I made a decision that I was going to do only the things that scare me. And I was in no way willing to scare myself out or do something. It just meant that I wanted to do the things that I found difficult at that time. And the fact that we're here today is just proof that whatever you set your mind to do, you have the ability to do that and even more. Now, before I came on here to do the normal shoot, I have a couple of things written down, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just prepare so that we can talk about it effectively. Let's write it down because our thoughts will be coordinated and all of that. But I realized that the truest stories come from when you are vulnerable enough to say them as they are. Now, vulnerability is something that not many people embrace. And I understand the fact that building these walls around yourself just protect you from the things that you think are wrong. But remember that when there's a fence, it stops everything. It doesn't just stop what is wrong, it can also stop what is right. So rather than building that fence around yourself and refusing at all to talk about these things, how about you open up, talk about these things, and filter what is right from what is wrong? Welcome to the Open Hearts podcast. I just want to assure you that this is a very safe space and it is created from the need to express yourself in your most vulnerable state and being very honest with yourself, your emotions, how you feel, and what you think you can do about how you feel. Now, grief is something or a conversation that has been relegated for the longest time. And I understand why, especially because everyone wants to look strong, everyone wants to look capable of doing things, even when they know that within themselves they are in a state where it is almost impossible to progress with your thoughts, your words, your emotions, or your actions. And nobody really teaches you how to grieve. You find yourself in that situation, you you start to navigate it one way or another. Now, for some people, they do it in the right way. I mean, is there even a right way to grieve? It's just coping mechanisms. It's just the way you relieve yourself of the pain that you feel. But let me assure you that it is important to have these conversations. Now, 5 years ago, exactly in January, the 9th of January, what I thought was a very beautiful day turned out to be the most catastrophic day. Now, I cannot say that my life changed for the worse or for the better, but I'm sure that it did change drastically. Now, by drastically, I mean that certain things that were not expected happened, and that's life, right? I mean, sometimes what you expect happens, sometimes you find yourself in a position where everything happens very fast. But on that day, I lost one of the most precious things to me. Now, this whole conversation is not born from a need to build a pity party, but just so people know that there are emotions that cannot even be expressed with words or with thoughts. On that day, of course, I was about my business, the usual day, and my mom was away for a while, and Just I was at the designer shop. Actually, a lot of women like clothes and what have you. So do I. And on that particular day, I was trying to make preparations, to have like a dress made for my mom, because I was going to be out of town for work and I'm always missing her birthdays. And I'm like, you know what? How about we make the plans earlier than normal? And so I was about that day when I got a call from one of my siblings saying, "Oh, pray for mommy." Now, that I didn't think so far. I didn't think about losing somebody. Worst case scenario, the person was just going to be in the hospital in a couple of days, everything will be fine. And so when I got that call, I went back home almost immediately, and from then on, we went to the hospital. And just as we were getting to the hospital, we were told that she had passed. I know that no one prepares for death, right? And I know that no one is above it. I mean, we must have conquered a lot of things, but this is one thing that we as human beings must face as long as we have our mortal bodies. But nothing, absolutely nothing can prepare you for such a loss. Now, I always will say that if you had a sick parent, maybe they were bedridden or they were going through one form of pain or something, some part of you know that it's either they get better or the condition deteriorates and they die. But in this case, none of this happened. Someone who was perfectly fine, I had spoken to her like a few minutes before, and then in split seconds, everything changed. Everything, absolutely everything. And, you know, it's easy to tell people to take heart when you are not in the position to receive that advice yourself. It's easy for you to tell people to move on when you don't even know what it means to move on. You'd hear all sorts of this advice. Oh, do not cry, she's in a better place. How do you know? How do I even know that they're in a better place? You spend most of your life wondering what went wrong, what could have been different, what you could have done to save the situation. And the truth is, no matter how much you prepare for such a day, it comes and you're still surprised at how everything happens. In that moment, I realized how fleeting life was. Like, nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed. And the truth is, in as much as we want to say, okay, we're Christians, I'm Christian, and I believe that, oh, there's life after death, all of these beliefs. But in that moment, your emotions, how you feel, how you think, nothing, absolutely nothing, I mean, correlates with what the Bible says, or nothing makes sense, literally. And so it was all sorts of cries and all sort of mourning. In fact, I personally, even if you're not a doctor, right, you go to the EKG machine and you see how it beeps, all straight lines, they're gone. When there's a pulse, they pick it, but it was right before my eyes, becoming all straight lines. We went to the nurses, we said, do what you can. And in all honesty, they tried, right? But it still happened, regardless. I even prayed because right at the hospital, there was a chapel where you could just say prayers. When I heard she was dead, we all went to the chapel praying. Miracles happen, right? Lazarus was raised from the dead, right? A lot of people had testimonies like this. I believed some way that something was going to happen. But here we are today. Nothing happened. 5 years, still moving on. And that is to say that pain is a propellant. No matter how dark we think about it, no matter how we think that pain is just pain and there's no meaning to it, it still does have meaning. And I know it's hard. It's a gradual process. Nobody expects you to figure it out all at once, because these emotions, they come rushing, and if you don't even handle them properly, they could destroy you. But yes, if you believe as much as I do, or you're a believer, I would say, I mean, in the book of Genesis, right? would hear, it's a very common scripture. So, Christian or not, I'm sure that a lot of people would have heard, oh, on the first day, the heavens and earth were created. God created light and called it day, and he called the darkness night. And some part of me, while I was still trying to figure out all of this situation, said, if darkness was such a bad thing, God would have conquered it. I mean, would have all day, it would be day all through. But because darkness in itself had a meaning, darkness in itself was also very important. Here in our world, darkness signified that time, it's time to rest, right? Now, in your personal life, that darkness that you feel can literally mean it's time to retrace your step. It's time to figure out something deeper than what you think it is or deeper than what you know. It's just a season where you get to pause and re strategize about life, about so many things. And I'm not glad that I lost my mom, right? But I'm glad that out of all of those emotions that I couldn't even figure out at the time, I was able to process certain things, and this is why we're here today. I know that there would be, I don't want to sell myself short, thousands and millions of people who are likely to listen to this podcast. And I am reassuring you that you are not alone. I have felt these emotions many times. As a matter of fact, for the longest time, I had been able to, push that aside, conceal that feeling, and get on with my life and my daily activities. But some part of me today just remembered it all, and I'm like, you know what? It's a feeling that you cannot hide. It's something that you cannot throw away. It becomes a part of you. So the earlier you try to figure out what to do with this thing that you're feeling, I think the better for you and the better for society, the better for every single person around you. You can keep running away from it 1,000 years. It will still hit you somehow. So this is just a call to you out there, feeling somewhat pain that you cannot explain, something that is just right at your throat and you cannot pretty much get it all the way down. It's time to sit with yourself and find out how to make headways from this thing that has kept you bound for so long. I know when we talk about grief, a lot of people liken it to just losing a loved one, but that's one aspect of grief. There are people who have lost out on on their social status. There are people who have lost relationships. In fact, before I started the entire conceptualization of this idea, I even realized that we always narrow down the pain of divorce to just the man and the woman who separate. What about the children that were born from that union? It's almost impossible for them to have like a single identity. So the mother goes separately. They try to form a bond with whoever the mother bonds with. The father goes his way and they try to find a bond with whoever. They are almost not in a place where their thoughts, their actions, or their emotions can be coordinated. People grieve relationships.
I think grief is something that we all can relate to. It's something that we all have experienced at some point in our life. And to date, it's not a conversation that you would hear on just about as many podcasts as we have today. And so it's important for us to point out that anyone who's out there who's grieving right now, you are not alone, and you need the people who are around you to support you. And I do hope that today you have people who support you, who understand you, who are there for you, who don't necessarily need to tell you how to grieve, but can tell you that they're right there, they're standing with you. And even if they're sitting with you in silence, I hope you know that their silence means that they're supporting you. And remember, you take your own time in grieving. Everyone has different grieving processes. For some people, it's a year. For some people, it's 2 years. For some people, it's a shorter time. And for some people, they start off crying and then they, slow out and get better. And for some people, they don't cry in the initial stage. They start crying later. But whatever your process is, remember that you're not alone and you're not going through this experience alone. So stay safe and be at peace.
People grieve jobs. Have you ever been in a toxic workspace where you gave your all to ensure that everything was done? You tried your best to be the best person carrying out your responsibilities, but somehow it wasn't appreciated, or you got fired. I got fired one time, to be honest, and I got fired regardless of the fact that I was doing my job well. appropriately. So I grieved that job. But the thing is, I moved on. And the point where you feel that pain and where you move on is exactly what we're trying to address with the Open Heart podcast. Don't even get me started on the expectations we have from the people around us that we love. You expect them to be there for you at such a time. You expect them to be able to carry the burden of your pain on their shoulders. I know it's a blessing to have people that understand how you feel. It's a blessing to have people that relate with your pain. But it's also important that you note that whether they're there or not, you need to make headways with your life. You need to be able to interpret this pain into something that can interpret this pain into something meaningful. And nobody is asking you to do it all at once. In fact, it will be unrealistic for someone to expect you to just get back to your normal self or your most authentic self after such an experience. It can happen in silos, one day after another, one step after another. No matter how long it takes, take your time and figure out these emotions. I know they're capable of destroying because you must have experienced something like that. And even if you haven't, you must have heard stories of people who never made it out of grief, never made it out of the pain that they felt. During the COVID era, where a lot of businesses shut down, we saw a remodeling of businesses in this part of the world. We never used to consider remote working. We never used to consider all of these things that we now find interesting and are trying to integrate with our businesses. But there are people who lost completely out of their businesses and their sources of livelihood because of the emergence of a new system. We all are grieving something: a life, a job, an event, a person, whichever one it is. I encourage you to take a seat right there or right here with me and be your authentic self. Feel these things. Allow yourself to feel. It's not a crime to feel. I know that we're in a society where people want to dictate to you how you talk, how you walk, how you feel, how you should grieve, even. But the most important thing is how you feel. This is what the society expects of me. This is exactly how I feel. Being able to separate both these emotions can put you in a place of power where you know exactly what to do, how to do, what to do, and when to do. This entire podcast is not limited to just Christians alone, or Muslims alone, or Buddhists alone. It is for everyone who at one point of their life or another has felt the pain of losing someone, the pain of losing something, or losing out on a status that we have pursued literally all our lives. And if you happen to fall in any one of these categories, you are not alone. Remember, grief is a part of life. And if you must experience it, I recommend moving with a community of people who have experienced this, who have navigated it excellently, and are willing to help you as well. I am Martha Alu, and this is the Open Heart Podcast, the way of opening up a conversation about pain, about healing, and everything edifying. I hope you find comfort, and I hope you find connection and healing here.